All right, hey everybody. My name is Ian Scott Cohen with the Founder Underground. I'm back here with Seth Banks, the managing partner of the TrueSeed Group and a B2B sales expert. Seth and I, if you don't already know, are putting on a 2-day B2B Sales Academy. Registration launches April 1st. And in preparation for that, it's all about founder-led sales. We really are speaking to those of you who are founders, who are starting out, you have a B2B business, and you are responsible for being the salesperson, which we know is incredibly hard. Both of us have had to do it, and it's not something that we're all naturally good at. And so we're putting together the academy to give you the skills to really get your initial founder-led sales model going. But we wanted to use this time to introduce you to how Seth breaks down where founders and their startups are in sort of a maturity level of their sales motion. And so, Seth, welcome back. Great to chat with you again. Excited to dig into this. Tell us a little bit about the founder-led sales maturity model. What is it, and why does it exist?
Yeah, well, first off, it's something that we all need. I find roadmaps very useful, especially for
Sure.
founders. Roadmaps,
Yep.
when you think of product, right, is really important, and almost every single area of business gets a roadmap outside of sales. And so
Right.
the reason why we put this roadmap together, or this maturity model, if you will, is to help founders understand what level of growth they're at, and also how long it should take them to get to the next level. So it allows them to be able to say, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we need to focus on. Let's not try to jump and tackle the big elephant right now. There are small wins that we can get that can set us up for the future. And so between me and my team of probably now 40 years of sales experience all combined, and where we've worked also as employees, but also as fractional sales directors, we've been able to gather this data to help founders clearly understand where they are.
Yeah, no, I love that. And your point is so well taken, right? Like we help founders understand like where they're progressing product market fit wise, or how to start building their community. But when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
sales, they're sort of just left out there to figure it out. And what is so great about this, and why we're doing the academy in the first place, is because we can actually break down for you where you're at in terms of sales maturity, and what are the things that are keeping you from getting to that next level, starting to make sales consistently, starting to make bigger sales, and then eventually getting ready to actually hire your first sales team. A lot of us as founders, when you do it for the first time, you make that mistake. And we'll talk about this when we go through the model, but we make that mistake of having a product we feel good about, getting a couple of customers maybe, and then saying, all right, we're ready for a salesperson because they know sales and we don't. But
Right.
in reality, what you've learned through your experiences and what we're going to focus on in this session and the academy itself is actually there's a very critical point, spectrum before the hire of that salesperson, where you really got to figure out the motion yourself. And luckily, Seth, your system breaks it down into its components, and we make it very, very easy to learn this stuff and start implementing fast. So why don't you walk us through how this model works? I know there are 4 levels, and
Yep.
so it's sort of like almost a progression founders can think about. So we all start at the bottom. So tell us
Mm-hmm.
about it. Feel free to share your screen. I know you got some slides to share with us.
Yeah, sure. It's really simple, actually. I like to keep things very, very simple. And so if you kind of think about this maturity model by levels, there's only 4 levels here, right? For early stage startup, and this maturity model really categorizes 2 levels, right? So it categorizes 4 levels. The 2 levels that are being held in category one are really indicative of startups that are very early stage, pre-revenue or generating revenue, usually within the first 1 to 3 years
Hmm.
of just being in business. And
Yep.
then level 3 and level 4 is what category 2 holds, and that's where you start to see sales success, and you've been able to build a foundation, and you're ready to get this sales support that you need in order to scale the sales motion. So a lot of founders that we work with fall within this category one bucket, if you will. And the biggest characteristics here that we find founders really relate to is, one, hey, we don't have a structured sales process or even a sales methodology in place that we
Yep.
are measuring on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, right? Or even quarter-to-quarter, year-to-year. We don't know what we're trying to prove. We don't know what we're testing. We don't know how we're qualifying our deals. And so because of that, we have these characteristics that you hear here on screen, right? We have inconsistent lead qualification. We have lower sales productivity, where unable to really predict revenue and how it will scale and feel great about that. And
Yep.
so if we can help them identify, oh, these are the characteristics that we're experiencing, then them being in this category really helps them to say, all right, cool. First thing we have to do is prove our sales methodology. Let's come up with it. And every single startup is going to have a different one. But it's great for you to at least know where you're starting.
Yeah, no, I love that. And just to really hammer this home for folks, 'cause I bet those folks who are looking at the screen, reading some of these bullet points, seeing things like sales methodology, your lead qualification. And if you're an early stage founder, I imagine your first reaction, as was mine, is that, oh, this stuff is too complicated, too nuanced for my understanding right now. I don't need any of this. I just need to send more emails, generate more meetings, and close these folks. And it doesn't matter who I get. I need to get more sales. And, so I just need to figure that out. But I'll tell you this. I've been teaching founders for, I don't know, a long time now, and I've coached a lot of founders one-on-one. I do a lot of programming, and this is what I can tell you. And I'll give you an analogy from marketing. So in marketing, there's something called hope marketing, where it's where we all start. And it's this idea that, okay, if I just start posting on different platforms and, I'm hoping that people will find us, and because we're so great, people will find us and it'll work. But as you get into marketing, you recognize that that is not how marketing works. You need to focus. You need to focus on one channel, maybe two. Yep. You need to really develop your message, consistency in posting, like really get into who you're targeting and understanding what gets them going, what strikes a chord. The same thing can be said about sales. Sales cannot be a hope-driven exercise, right? Like even if you set up email automation, that's great. That's definitely a part of this process if email is the way that you go. But getting an understanding of these nuances early is actually how you grow, right? Putting in the time to understand this stuff is the entire ball game. A lot of times there's a famous saying, first time founders focus on product, second time founders focus on sales and distribution. Yep. And it's totally true. You can have the greatest product in the world, but that doesn't mean people you're selling to will give a shit about it, to be honest. And so that's what we're talking about here. These challenges, while they use sales language, they're really just challenges saying, look, you haven't figured out how to get sales consistently. And then category 2 challenges is you haven't figured out how to actually scale a process that's working for you. And so that is what this is all about. This is real stuff that is super relevant for any early stage founder who sells to businesses, organizations, institutions. So I just wanted to clarify that, because I don't want people to get lost in the minutia or the jargon. Like, this is about you growing your business, and this is the way to do it. Otherwise, you're just throwing darts at a board, and it's probably not going to lead to anything. So with that said, I want to kick it back to you. Maybe you'll take us through like kind of what level 1 or level 2 is and how that works.
Yeah, for sure. And I absolutely agree there. Some founders are even confused because that's their first time hearing that terminology, right? Sales methodology. Like, what the heck is that? Right. Really, it's your technique. It's your process. It's you outlining the steps and having the strategy used by, you as a professional and also your team to help identify, qualify, and close deals. That's the whole goal here. And it's okay to be basically a baby in this process, right? You're learning how to walk, right? And so you take those steps, but as soon as you start taking those steps, you start to build confidence, you get more practice at it, and then it becomes natural. And a lot of this is really just a science to the madness. Once you are able to start to hone in on that sales methodology, then it can start to get a little bit of fun because you start closing deals, you start testing, new ways to say the same thing, right? You start to learn your personality as a person who sells, which there are tons of different personas. Totally. But it can get fun, right? And most founders are like, I hate sales. You don't have to hate it, right? Because at the end of the day, we all sell every day at work.
I was just talking to founders about this last week. I literally was talking about our academy coming up. Again, registration opens April 1st. Definitely get your seat. But the reason I think that people are so sort of like founders are so averse to sales is because unlike other roles in business, salesperson is very much like our culture has made it into an identity, right? And founders we want our identity to be founder and then to be executive. Those are really the things that we care about. And so the idea of becoming good at sales almost makes you feel like you have to become a salesperson, which in our cultural sort of universe, we all think of salespeople as pushy, salespeople as sort of like only money driven, which is not why we started our business. But to your point, this isn't about making you a salesperson. This is about making you better at sales so that eventually your business can grow and you can hire salespeople. This isn't about turning you into a pushy person. If anything, this is about making you realize that you can be authentically yourself, and using these methods, you can actually close deals based off the merits of your understanding of the problem and your product's value to your customer. This is not about like Jedi mind tricks. This isn't about fooling people. This is about being able to actually convey your value and the brilliance of what you've built. Because a lot of times we get so frustrated. It's like, they just didn't get it. They didn't get it. And it's like, no, you didn't get them. That is the whole thing here, right? Yes. And so this isn't about making you a pushy salesperson. This is about helping other people understand you, and then you can bank those sales, which, to Seth's point, nothing's more fun than seeing money drop in your account from a sale, honestly. Yes. And that's why you see salespeople become so obsessed with it. Seth has sold a lot more than I have, and I bet he has a ton of fun doing it.
It's one of the best things ever. It really is. For sure. Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I mean, I think it's really easy. It's not like there is 1,000 different data points that you need to gather to understand where you fit on one of these on this scale. Really, if here on the screen you can see, it's easy for us to point out if founders don't feel really comfortable with their CRM, if they're not utilizing data, if there's a lack of sales documentation, a big flag for us in just identifying whether or not you're early stage and you're on this level 1, level 2, is if you have a founder-led sales playbook, right? That's majority of the times missing from a lot of these.
What does that mean? What's in the playbook, just broadly speaking?
Yeah, absolutely. So the playbook actually holds a couple of different components, and we'll jump into it in just a second. Really, everything that we're talking about, this sales methodology, is inside of your sales playbook, but it's the universal language that your startup should be using, right? As far as who your ideal customer profile is, what are your ideal customer profile's common challenges and strategic goals, and how does our product or service help them achieve those goals or solve those challenges? Then we get even into a more nano view, if you will, when we start to identify and understand the buyer personas, right? The buyer personas are usually your champions within a deal process, or who directly you're going to be most commonly speaking to throughout a deal cycle. So what does their day-to-day look like? What are their challenges specifically in their role that may differ from what the organization's struggles might be? Right. And so once we have all that language within our founder-led sales book, everyone becomes an expert on who the ICP is. Everyone becomes an expert on who the buyer persona is. And now that language can be used in our marketing material. I'll say this, but without saying too much, is that a lot of early stage companies try to attack marketing and sales differently, right? Or separately. Really, they need to be together, not just in the same house, but in the same bedroom. And so that's why we've coined those two departments as your smarketing motion. Your marketing department, right? Sales and marketing need to be using each other's language. It needs to be consistent. And also, a lot of times everyone thinks that it's about marketing. Oh, how cool does our videos look, and how awesome does our, brand guidelines, come out? Really, a lot of that stuff doesn't matter, to be honest with you. It's the language that's most important. And that's the same language that you want to use from the time that you have generated awareness, which is what marketing should be helping you do, to the time that you're having that first call and executing, those different stages within your deal cycle all the way up to close.
Got it. Yeah. So level 1 and level 2 basically is saying, hey, you're here if you really don't know how to repeat your sales process. Correct. And you're not even to a place where you're really documenting how it's going. Maybe you're not using a CRM, maybe you're using a spreadsheet, but at the same time, like, you have to look at every possible sale as a repetition of a process that you need to iterate it over time. They're not all independent events. That's how they are when you start, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the goal is to turn them into repeatable events that you have
Right.
this consistent message for and that you have consistent results for. So level one and
Mm-hmm.
level two, we've got these different challenges. I've certainly experienced and seen every single one of these on here.
Yeah.
Yeah, are there any other slides you want to show us here?
Absolutely. So, what does it look like to prove the sales methodology is probably
Okay,
the biggest
perfect.
question.
Yep.
And it's really building this essential sales infrastructure. That's the best way to think about it. I like to think of it as basically the process of, getting an aquarium and getting fish in your aquarium, right? A lot of times people go get the fish and the aquarium at the same time. Bad mistake. If you know anything about aquariums, you need to build the environment first and invest into the environment so that when you get the fish, they can live and have lots of happy fish babies, right?
Yeah.
And so your fish babies are your account executives, and if you don't have the right environment for them, they're going to fail. Right? They're going to become frustrated because the environment wasn't set up. So this infrastructure is basically not only helping you become confident in your leadership in the area of sales, but also for your sales account executives to come in and understand, okay, how do I get running as soon as possible? And how do I duplicate the success that our founder has already accomplished?
Right. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
So you have these different components here that make up your sales methodology. It's your sales framework, right? Which basically is that well-defined sales process. Now, a lot of times people get the sales process and the sales cycle mixed up. Actually, the sales cycle is a part of the sales process, right? The sales process is what are you doing before each call? What are you doing during each call? And what are you doing after each call of the sales cycle, right? And so that might be prospecting, it might be collateral that's being shared, it might be assessments that are gathered. It's a lot of different variation as far as what those stages look like or what those steps look like in your process. That comprehensive sales playbook is what we just talked about. That founder-led sales playbook needs to hold all of this information so it's not scattered across, your Google Drive everywhere. It's in one place. Everybody can find it. It's basically your universal sales Bible or your organization Bible, right? For language. And then of course you have understanding your CRM and then having a lead qualification process and as well as having that sales cycle mapped out with all the different stages. So we're definitely going to dive a lot more into this as the academy approaches, and I'm really excited about that. But this right here provides so much clarity into what we should focus on in level 1, level 2. I would say it takes usually about 2 months to 3 months to get this all together, right? Because these are big pieces, and so you just want to take little, bites at it each day, each week.
Right.
But once you get this in place, you can run. You can run tests and then iterate as you go. And then once you start seeing deals close and you start hitting those monthly revenue goals, you're going to want to bring someone else in. We will caution you by saying that until you sold about 10 deals, right, with this repeatable sales process, usually outbound because it's the toughest type of deal to close, or you've generated $1 million in revenue through sales yourself, that you should not go and hire an account executive yet.
Yeah. To reiterate that, you want to, if you've made 10 sales in a repeatable way, not 10 sales just like randomly, right? Like, founders, we're scrappy. We can go out there. I got 10 sales together in my first few months just because, I worked my network and figured it, but they were all different. Right. Every process was different. And that's nice in the beginning to kind of get your feet wet. But if you actually want to build a business that grows and scales, you need repetition. You need things that other people can repeat. And so what they're seeing on the screen here is what it looks like to have that infrastructure that can then be leveraged. So I want to ask you a quick question before we kind of wrap it up here.
Sure.
So when we're building this structure, are we also selling while we're doing it? Like, are we kind of learning as we go here? Or do you advise, well, let's get a baseline structure in place before we start selling and then iterate afterwards?
Yeah, I think, we need to take every single call that we can when we're early stage, right?
Yeah, sure.
For the deals that are in process or that are still coming to you as you are building this out, we want to just encourage you to try to get your ICP and your buyer persona down packed as soon as possible, right? The disco call is the most important call of the sales cycle. And so really, if you want to just focus on making sure that presentation is more so about the customer or the prospect, if you will, and less about you, then you've got great odds for that deal to close, right?
Yeah. Right.
You want to spend less time, speaking in those conversations, because you should be asking open-ended questions and assessing whether or not this is even a good deal or not. So by the time that you've been able to get a couple of these calls, down packed and feel confident about them, you should still in the background be prioritizing this, because for founders who are ready to focus on sales, that means that this is the most important thing to focus on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
If you're ready for sales, I mean, the product is ready to go. You've got someone ready to take the calls. So, this is what you should be focused on a day-to-day basis. So it shouldn't be, well, it's in the background. We haven't got it yet. So we can't, it's basically analysis paralysis. Mm-hmm. We've got generative AI. You can get it down, right? You can get it down. So I definitely think you should still be taking sales calls.
Yeah, 100%. And to reiterate your main point in the beginning here, discovery calls or the disco calls, those are so critical as a founder. These are the first calls you get, right? So you email somebody outbound, they reply back, they say, sure, yeah, I'll meet with you. Like that first call is your discovery call. And as an early stage founder, there's few things more important than nailing those calls. Not just because they can turn into sales, which is obviously super important, but also it's because it's where you validate and learn so much. It's right. It's where you want to validate your understanding of the customer, the understanding of their pain points, the assumptions that you've made, or invalidate them, right? You might stumble upon other things. You might realize it's like, oh, this doesn't actually matter to them. I was just reading an update from a startup that I advise where they said they had met with several, they're in ed tech. They had met with several district leaders. They had been selling to school leaders, and they realized that like their pitch to district leaders, which was the same they used for school leaders. So that should already tell you that there needs to be some adjustments probably. Right. But you got to learn this stuff. So they learned it on their own. They went through a couple and they realized that, like the pain points they would hit on are not resonating with the superintendent, right? Yeah. They only resonate with the school leader. And so you have to have a different kind of pitch. And you only get that through trial and error and just trying it. And we're going to give you the guidance. The best thing about the Sales Academy coming up, again, registration opens April 1st, is that we are actually going to teach you and give you a template for your disco calls. We're going to give you Seth's tried and true template. It's a full kind of deck template. We're also going to teach you the slides that you need to rip out of your presentation. And we're going to teach you how to ask the right questions in that first call. And so instead of just wasting all your time trying to do a demo, which you should never do in that first call, you're actually going to use these tools to get the information you need, cultivate the lead, and also just judge whether they're even appropriate for you or not. That's called qualification. But yeah, we're going to equip you to do all this level 1 stuff so that you're going to immediately start seeing results. And so we wanted to give you a little taste here. Again, one of the things that I love about TrueSeed and Seth is that he actually is applying a framework and rigor to sales. This isn't just, 10 tips on how to be a better salesperson or cool ways to respond to objections. This is actually a methodology to teach sales methodology. Not to be, redundant, but you get what I'm saying. And This is so empowering once you learn it, because you actually will start making money for your business, which is what we're all here for.
Which is going to be very fun. So we're really excited about seeing all of you. If you're getting this video, it's because you are interested in what we've got coming up, or you've seen this somewhere that we've posted, and hopefully you can join this one or the next one. So it's going to be lots of fun for every academy that we've got coming, especially this one coming up. And thanks, Ian, for sharing some time and getting this out to the people.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to share it. Thanks, Seth.
Awesome.